All right. And we're live. I feel like I just barely got off a little bit ago. I hope everybody here got a chance to check out Viva Fry. I think he finished not too long ago with JD Vance. I'm curious how many of you actually have read Hillbilly Elegy, which is a tremendous book. Really, really enjoyed that. I'd love to know what you guys think of it if you have read it or if you have not. Definitely curious to know. Uh-oh, I have an echo. Is it a vocal echo, John Paxton, or what's going on? Let me check. No, I got cancellation on. Nope, no echo. Okay, are you messing with my mind, John Paxton? Oh, okay. Or is it echo is in 2 times in a day? I'm sorry, I'm a space cadet. Yes, S. Saka. Definitely. I haven't seen the video yet. I think it's amazing they got Glenn Close to play in the movie, but the book itself was phenomenal. I read it like 4 years ago. It was almost like the Trump's America book. I remember when it came out, and everybody's like, okay, well, this is Trump's America, and this is what we have and what we're dealing with. And over time, he's gotten hatred because the book became really, really popular. And that's, of course, sad. It's like, well, we like him, and now we don't like him anymore because, well, he starts to resemble things that are going on in the country. How's everybody doing tonight? Start off with the most important thing. Booze, beer, IPA, smart mouth. Back to old reliable, at least for right now. Hope everybody's doing well. What are you all having? I'm going to be showing a video here in a moment with a bobcat while Allison is dealing with her own bobcat, which is an infant, because Allison's on her own tonight. So she's got to kind of wrangle Lily and then come on. Scott, wait, am I working on the same case of beer? Yes, Scott, I am. I'm very responsible. I promise. Sakov, I saw you complaining that you're never going to sleep. I hope that's a good thing. I hope you're enjoying all the entertainment from everyone and everything. And yeah, it's funny about bobcats. I actually had a cat when I was growing up, and he was completely untrainable. There was nothing that anybody could do to control him or anything else. And I grew up in Tucson, Arizona, and it was part of, we had the Arizona Sonora Desert Museum, which is sort of an important museum because that was, I think, one of the first museums where they put the wildlife in their natural habitat within the facility. So it wasn't, like the typical stereotype of concrete bunkers with the jail cell, all the bars and everything. They actually had all the animals living in a habitat where they could be more comfortable. And you know what? I think I'm sharing in the wrong window. Let's do this again. Stop that screen. So what is everybody having? I want to definitely track the Booze Fest. And I've got to get past the pre-roll ad on this stupid video. You always have to love that. You go to share video and you have a pre-roll ad. Good times for all. So let's see if we can do it. Okay, I've got it queued up. And I'm going to share the screen. Now, Allison sent this to me immediately before so I could share it with you guys while she was wrangling with her own bobcat, so to speak. So let's see what's going on here.
The woman is definitely happy with her husband today. A security camera caught this crazy moment of a bobcat attacking a woman outside her South Carolina home. Wow, the husband quickly swings into action. As you see, they're grabbing the bobcat off her back with his bare hands and chucking it in their yard.
shoved my arm in there. That's why I ended up with it face to face. And it's not really until I get it a few steps away that I look at it and I realize it's a bobcat. And I say, oh my God, it's a bobcat.
Yeah, it's a bobcat. Police sent that bobcat to a lab where testing confirmed positive for rabies. The couple had to get some treatment, but hey, they're both happy to just be alive.
No, and look at that. Oh, a pre-roll ad. Isn't that charming? All right. So, bobcat. Wow. Apparently, they were treating the bobcat for rabies, and the family has to go in and be checked out themselves. That's pretty freaking scary. Good Lord. So what do we have, everybody? Oh, we got Jägermeister. God, I haven't heard about Jägermeister for a while. Cute. Yeah, she's dealing with producers gone wild over there. Fierce and lively. I'm a Collins with whiskey. Now, I'm not sure what exactly is made up in a Collins. I know that it's gin quite often, like a Tom Collins is gin, but I don't know the other ingredients. Mike Bruno's having coffee. You don't need to be any more excited, dude. Okay, good. Yeah, make it Irish. Sold. Mike Bruno can make it Irish. I don't know what Buffalo Trace is. That sounds awesome. Whatever. Basil Hayden's neat. Cool. Jägermeister again. Coffee. It's 3 a.m. Where are you, Saka? Are you Eastern Europe? Apple juice cut 70 to 30 with water. Okay. Oh, chemo treatment. Jeez. Good luck on that. I'm sorry to hear that. Let's see. What do we have? Yingling. That's from just up the road, Pennsylvania. Pretty good stuff. Buffalo Trace, highfalutin whiskey. No wonder I didn't know what it is. It's definitely above me. And we got exceptional bourbon. What do we have here? Rum and whiskey. And here to rescue me. Oh my goodness.
I tried really hard to wrangle my daughter into my office and it just didn't work. So I figured I'll put on my blue frame sunglasses since everybody is used to seeing and we'll just talk here.
Okay. You haven't heard enough about blue frame glasses yet, so go up.
Now we can talk about my blue frame sunglasses now. So did you show the bobcat video?
I did. I had no real preparation for it. Looked very scary, obviously. I saw that they're being treated for rabies.
Yeah, well, so from what I understand, they can't. From what I understand, you can't find out if an animal has rabies until you kill it, right? And you look at its brain. That's what I've understood. So, but it would, I guess, be consistent with its behavior. I've never heard of a bobcat acting like that. So, and I was an environmental reporter covering wildlife in an urban, suburban / even kind of foothills type area where we had tons of bobcat and never heard of anything like that. So it would make sense that there was something wrong with that cat.
But, well, I mean, they're shy. They're really shy. I mean, it's hard to even catch them on camera, isn't it?
Oh yeah, very difficult. Yeah, you could have bobcats all around you and never see one. Same with cougars. We have cougars around us. I'm pretty sure they're in the we're maybe a football field away from a state park that's just trees. One part of it's a campground, but it's acres, hundreds of acres, and we have cougar that go through there, but we've never seen one. Watch your chickens though. Yeah.
Well, and watch the Lily. Sorry, I know the cougars, small animals, and even you, Lily. they can be, potentially dangerous, but I mean, cats are really, really, really shy. You don't, you catch them on game cameras more than you do ever see them, hardly.
Right.
We had them in Tucson, but I mean, I think that my parents maybe saw them only a couple times, and I grew up there 18 years.
Wildlife, for the most part, I don't think really want to hang out with us. There are things we can do that will attract them that you can stop doing if you don't want them around. But we see coyote run.
Well, coyotes are fearless. Coyotes will almost walk up to you depending on their mood. They're definitely not the same.
I think they're definitely different than cats.
Yeah.
They get into a little bit more trouble sometimes for that reason, and
Sure.
will sort of enter into urban areas, I think, a little bit more than cats will. Now that could be because of territoriality. When I was covering cougars once, one of my stories was about whether Washington state should increase its limit for hunters on cougars, and the biologist who had set the initial quota was concerned that they were essentially doubling it. And he was concerned that what was going to happen was that you were going to end up getting basically an insurgency of young cats, because people would be going after the bigger cats. And
Sure.
cougars are actually very territorial. Cats are very territorial. And they, in their research, found that one male cougar protected about 150 square miles, and it would kill another cougar that tried to take its spot. So they were almost kind of, working it out on their own. Now, of course, there are arguments, we have more, but, the pushback to that is if management sort of it raises the limit too high. The concern from the biologist was that you were basically killing off the natural limits that the cats set on themselves and their own populations. And then you get something like basically a regime change, where you have a bunch of young juvenile cats that don't mind living on top of each other, because the adult cats at about 5 years plus, they will kill each other off, but the younger cats will live together until they get to that point where they have that territoriality about them. So that was kind of the point. So it's just interesting because that wasn't okay. I know that was not the case with wolves. Anyway, all right, Lily's gonna help me.
Well, coyotes too. I don't know. Rogan actually had I forgot the guy's name. I want to say Russell something, but a coyote expert on, and he talked about how when they hunt coyotes to cull the herd, that it backfires. That when they're doing their calls, which, by the way, everybody who thinks that coyotes have the they're like wolves, which they kind of get that impression that they're like wolves in movies sometimes. They're not. They sound like a crazy ass raucous party. If you've ever been around them, it's just this crazy gippy cheering. Just like they all sound drunk.
I hate it. Freaks me out. Like, listen, I love wildlife because I gave up my life to cover them. So it's not like I hate coyotes, but the sound, it's like, I'm like, hide your wives, hide your children, even though I know that's a stupid, like, I know all the biologists that I worked with would be like, that's so dumb. But I do initially have that reaction when I hear it, because it's just like, it sounds like there's 1,000 of them, and I know it's not probably even maybe 10 or 15, but the way that they do that yelping, it sounds like they're coming at you, man. And you better move, you better throw all your chicken into the yard and surrender to the coyote band. Cause they're like, like a million of them. They're funny,
and
but you got to
apparently they're doing a head count when they're doing that. And
oh, really?
Like the mother regulates how many pups she has. And if the head counts seem low, instead of having like 2 or 3, she'll have 5.
Oh,
so it's kind of a counterbalance. Like every time you go and do the bounties, you hunt them down, they actually will grow more. So,
well, it's definitely a controversy here in Washington, because there was a researcher here who I interviewed who ended up suing Washington State University because he talked to the press about his research, which showed kind of what you're talking about with wolves and basically carnivores in general. But he was specifically looking at wolves, and they were finding that it was disrupting pack behavior to basically the state. When there is a certain amount of attacks on cattle, they have the policy that they get in the helicopters and snipers shoot them from the air. It's very controversial. And This guy's research, he said, showed that it was disrupting their pack behavior and making them more likely to attack cattle in the long run. Now, there was all this pushback politically, and people that were like, there's other research that says that's not true. And anyway, he got, I guess, pretty bad hand slap by Washington State University for even speaking to the press about it. And then he ended up suing for free speech. It was an interesting case, but that guy, you know, the one thing I remember him saying, which I thought was so telling, and this is years ago before we were in the political climate we're in now, he goes, when did wolves become Democrats? Because that's really what they did. They've become Democrats in Washington.
That's insane. That is insane. And it does go both ways. I mean, I do remember like everything being frozen for the spotted owl.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's overprotective, sometimes it's underprotective, and it's like we can't seem to find a happy medium. It's really, really annoying.
Right.
Oh, Booger 414, you're right. Coyotes are the main customers of Acme Industries. So think of the economic impact.
Yeah. I'll be honest with you though, like I feel like every species has its place, and you know, they keep vermin down and they do their part. It's just, I also think people, you know, have a right to protect their property. And so unfortunately, like you were saying, Eric, it can become so polemic that, you know, one side will not rest until you go vegan. The other side doesn't want to see any. And I don't, you know, the extremes tend to be the ones that drive the conversation, and the people that are in the middle, they don't want to deal with the controversy. So these issues, I think, could be far more easily worked out if it was like, you know, the loudest voices were not the only ones that we're often hearing in the media. You know, go to my background, which is why I tried to make sure I was including people that were sort of that mindset. But it got harder and harder to get those people to talk because they didn't want to deal with the mob, you know, and that's a whole nother issue that other you know, news events we could discuss, deal with. But it's just like, it just goes to show, I saw that change over time, even in just the little corner of the United States that I was covering with wildlife, how more and more people didn't want to speak out if they were moderates. And I feel like now, you know, say fast forward a few years, you're not talking about wildlife, you're talking about a whole bunch of stuff, and it's getting worse.
Oh yeah. Courtney Grace says coyotes are the garbage men of their native habitats. However, they also do have predatory drives. Yes, they do. I mean, if you have cats, you have small animals. I mean, you really very legitimately need to lock them up because they won't come home.
Our dog, actually, because even though she was big, we had neighbors,
pack animals,
lost a boxer and a golden retriever. Both likely, I mean, it could have been cougar, I guess, but you know, there was concern that it was a coyote pack, you know, because we just have so many of them here. We have so many. I mean, and they do just run through our pasture. Now, when they see us, they're not just like, they don't say, "Oh, hey, Allison," you know, they're out of here. But so we haven't had those issues, you know, with them. But the people who were here before us said that they would see the coyotes come up and steal a chicken or two every once in a while.
Oh yeah, they will. Yeah, they will. And I mean, depending on how hungry they are and whatnot, I mean, they can be pretty bold. I grew up with goats, and I actually had a Great Pyrenees, and that was quite a sight to see. Because have you ever seen Great Pyrenees, the dogs, before?
They're big.
Yeah. We had an arena because I grew up with horses. My sister did barrel racing and things like that, and she would train like in this big arena. And we had the baby goats in there, kids, with the Great Pyrenees. And what's so funny is the Pyrenees is like just this big lump. They just lay there all day, just totally mellow. And the kids would just walk all over, which is amazing. It was him originally, but goats have feet that are not pleasant to walk on. The cloven hooves are kind of painful, and they would just like be jumping on him, and he'd be like nudging off with his nose and everything. Yeah. Then we'd have some coyotes come up to the fence line, and all of a sudden that sleepy dog is just boom, Johnny on the spot.
Oh, really?
Flies over to the fence of the bee line, does this just gigantic and the coyote literally flipped over backward onto its back. It goes running away. It was hilarious, but
well, that's why people keep those kinds of dogs around for their sheep.
oh yeah, they're fierce protectors, and they actually are really, really kind and mellow. One note though, if you ever do get them, remember if you're going to add anybody to the flock, you have to introduce them to the dog first, or they won't survive.
Oh, okay, that's good to know. Chaka used to go to doggy daycare with a Great Pyrenees, and really good friends. But I will say that Great Pyrenees was definitely in charge.
Yeah, but they don't make a big deal out of it.
No,
it's like,
yeah, Chaka
they just know.
Yeah, Chaka was always very like, yeah, okay, cool. You're the boss. I'll just be over here in the corner. She knew.
And the Pyrenees, they're nice.
Yeah.
Okay, so while we're talking about madness and mobs and ridiculousness and so on, I pulled up. Okay, oh, here we go. Mike Bruno wants you to pan around. It looks lovely there. We're looking at it in your glasses.
Okay, hang on a second. I'm gonna back up. All right.
Oh yeah, it looks great.
But I'm afraid to go too far because
no, you don't have to. Just do a pan. Just spin.
But yeah, there's our trail. You can see our horse trailer over my left shoulder, and then
sure. Yep, that's it. Yeah,
and then that's
it's your left shoulder. It's our right, your left.
I could
look at those. The sexy propane tank. Yep.
Yeah, I don't think that. I don't know what we have propane for. But yeah, we're really lucky. We're on 20 acres, and maybe next time we do News with Booze, I can do it from in the garage where the Airstream is. We can show everybody the Airstream. Maybe that could be our big tease for next time. We'll do an Airstream.
There you go. Speaking of tease, actually, you know what? I've got to do this first. Kevin Linville was kind enough to remind me last week about it. I forgot. I mean, last week was crazy and we barely got it done. News with Booze is kind of a less than organized mess, but we're getting there and we're consistent. Yeah. So, which is not consistently fighting through.
And like we should. Did you tell everybody that my babysitter had to work somewhere else because I don't pay her enough or something? No, actually, that's not why. She has.
No, I just said you were wrangling your own bobcat. Called a producer.
Yeah. Well, I've been lucky that I've had this we have an amazing babysitter. She's a freshman in college who is studying early childhood education, and she's so good with our daughter. But she's the last two News with Boozes. She's had to. She has a training she has to be in, and so she's had to leave early. So yeah, and Lynn's gone per usual. So he's actually in St. Louis right now training.
He's out training cops.
Training cops, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Don't tell. Oh, wait, sorry. Oh, there goes some unsubs. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, that's all I can say at this point.
All right. Kevin reminded me of this. It was a couple weeks back and it was towards the end, but you're supposed to share your bio moment, your internship in France, dealing with a children's show. An adult toddler dresses as a toddler / pacifier, motorized bassinet.
Yeah.
Does all this still sound scary, Eric? He asked. By the way, this is on unstructured.locals.com. Make sure you go there and to AlisonMorrow.locals.com. That's Eric, my Barnes moment.
Can you Google real fast and maybe pull up for people Bebe Charlie? So it's Bebe and then Charlie, which is like Charlie in French.
Sure.
And see if you can find an image of him or maybe even one of his music videos.
Well, I got Charlie Bebe, but not,
It should be Bebe Charlie and try Bebe Charlie IAP, IAP, which stands for Interdit aux Parents or No Parents Allowed. Anyway, I'll explain why you're looking. So when I was junior in college, I decided to study abroad in France because I was a French double major. And to my credit, most of the Parisians who are pretty snobby about their language actually thought I was German because I was good enough at faking my Germanic accent and speaking French that at least they didn't know immediately I was American. So I felt pretty good about that. And I was fluent back then, but now I suck because I have had no one to talk to. So I knew at the time I wanted to work in television, but originally they had assigned me to MTV TRL Europe. And I was really excited about that because the job description was driving around on a moped and filming people for music video intros.
Oh my God.
That sounded like an amazing internship, but something happened. I'm not really quite sure. And they like canceled the show. And so they assigned me to Bebe Charlie. And so this, I was the only English speaker in the whole office. So I had to speak French, which is partially why I was really good at speaking French by the time I left. And most of the people were really nice, except for my boss was about, I feel like he was 4'10", 4'10", but really angry and like maybe kind of like literal Napoleon complex because he's in France. And so I feel like there's a little bit more of a connection maybe to that. But he was so mad at me for, well, I don't know. He just hated that I'm not really quite sure what the deal was, but he was so feisty. And yeah, that's Baby Charlie. That is him on the left. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So he would have, I'm guessing maybe the guy on the right is perhaps a co-host at some point, but what would happen was, they would take a whole weekend and film, say 5 episodes. Cause these episodes were really intense. They would have, like American Idol type singing contest. They would have Double Dare, contests for like, crazy challenges. There would be other games that kids would compete in, and it would take, I don't know, the episodes would each be an hour, but it would take hours and hours to shoot them. So we would rent out a warehouse and we'd spend the whole weekend shooting. So of course, as the American intern who they thought had like no brains, back to my boss who had this little feisty boss of mine, he put me on feeding them. So I had to feed 150 French people during this show shooting with Baby Charlie zooming around me in a life-size stroller and a pacifier that changed his voice. And let's see, for instance, for one lunch, I had to make 150 sandwiches from baguettes that I had to order fresh. Okay. It's not like in Paris, you can't just order Subway. You have to order the fresh baked bread and then all of the meats and the cheeses, and you have to make them yourself. I'm making them myself. And, I this is terrible, but at one point I cut myself on the knife and I was just like, you know what? Screw this. Like, I'm done. I put everything down and I just walked. I was like, I'm done. I'm not making sandwiches anymore for these French people. I'm the American and they're like trying to punish me. I'm not really quite sure what's going on, but leading into it, my favorite part of that internship was that they had this prized game that they played, and maybe you remember it, the Dance Dance Revolution, where you did like you had to step on the pedals and hit the dance moves correctly, and then you would win. So it's a very expensive piece of equipment, and they had it in this warehouse. Oh, by the way, side note, I had to buy all of the groceries for my sandwiches, and that was just one meal. Okay, I had to feed all the meals, but yeah, I had to drive a U-Haul to a grocery store, and I had to buy like 10 pounds of butter, 50 pounds of mayonnaise. Like, it was just ridiculous going around, and people were just looking at me like it was nuts. So anyway, prior to that, to my shopping experience, I had to go pick up the Dance Dance Revolution machine with one of the French interns, and I'm walking through this dark warehouse. Keep in mind, they already kind of hate me, and that's why they assigned me to cooking duty. And I fall 3 feet into the floor, and I hear just this crashing of glass, and I'm like, oh God, what just happened? I fell through the Dance Dance Revolution machine screen. I ruined it the day before the shooting, and my boss was, I will never forget, the French intern. He called and said in French, there's been an accident with Allison. And they're like, okay, no shock there. And Allison is okay. The Dance Dance Revolution is not okay. I remember that. It's not okay. And I was like, I heard, what? So yeah, it was like out of a nightmare. That was that guy with the pacifier was like my boss. He wasn't Alex was my boss producer, but that guy was my other boss.
He was the star, right? So you had to suck him up.
Yeah. So that's the story. There's so much more to it, but I won't bore you.
Oh my goodness. Well, okay. Somebody, Amaranthus wants to know if you remember enough French to translate. A green worm pours a glass towards a glass maker around 8 o'clock.
something vert. What is a worm? I can't remember worm.
I think it's all very, 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 very sounds. I
Something
think so. I
vert.
think they did it with David. I mean, Viva Fry.
Yeah.
Or
It's really sad that I am my. It's really sad how quickly you can lose a language. It's truly sad. I could have said that without even thinking about it 15 years ago.
You're ahead of me. I never would have had it.
Can I Google this?
Sure.
Wheater. I can say some of it. Wheater is 8 o'clock. I don't know what a glass maker is. Glass.
Vente?
Say it again.
Vente? Isn't that like a glass? Vente?
I don't think so.
That
is-
I don't know.
It's crazy. Years it's been since I've been, regularly speaking French, and it's gone, man. It's sad. I need to, what should I do? Do that Rosetta Stone and try to get it all back?
Oh, ver. Verre is glass.
Okay.
So okay, that makes sense. Like verde is green and ver is glass, and I think it's like saying almost a very similar word over and over and over.
Pours a glass towards a glass maker. Enough. Yeah, I don't know. Ugh.
Yeah, I don't know.
Sorry, everyone.
You got us. Yeah, we don't know. Yeah, we'll get Viva Fry someday. Maybe he'll do it.
Yeah,
Okay.
be able to translate it. Lynn, whenever he's on with us for News with Booze or whatever else, Lynn's always like, start speaking French with him. I'm like, I don't want to embarrass myself. He'll like, I'll start out saying, oh, bonjour, blah, blah, blah. And then he'll respond and I'll be like, I have no idea what you just said. Actually,
is he speak French?
I can
Lynn
understand. Yeah, he does. Yeah. Lynn? No.
Yeah.
Viva. He does.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah.
Lynn always says speak French whenever Viva's around, and I'm like, the conversation will not go very far at this point.
No, and I mean David does it full time. I mean, he's back and forth,
Yeah. Okay. Here.
Now I'm sure if it's a Parisian, he'd get some flack, but oh well, everybody does.
Oh yeah, they can tell a Canadian accent versus the Parisians take it very seriously. La belle langue, and I'll never forget my first experience when I went to Versailles. This lady at the ice cream shop, if anyone's been to Versailles, there's an ice cream place right outside it, and I was getting an ice cream and I ordered in French because at that point in time I could speak French, and and she turned to one of the customers thinking I didn't understand her and said, "The stupid Americans come over here and think they can speak French and they butcher our language." And I went and I walked up. My dad had taken me to drop me off basically, and and I looked at him and go, "I'm never coming back to France. Get me the next flight out of here." He's like, "You can't leave every time, a French person says, or anyone says something." I'm like, "I'm out of France. I hate France." So.
That's when you just lie. I mean, a lot of Americans are like, "I'm Canadian."
Oh, well, then 9/11 happened, and we were told to say that. I was there for 9/11. And
wow.
Yeah, and so then, it was very high security at that point.
Wow.
But I passed as German, so I didn't need to do that. Which apparently
there you go.
like Germans better, which is very odd given the history.
Yeah. Well, they surrendered to him pretty quickly. Oh, sorry. Too soon?
Look. Say hi.
Lily. Hi. You're not completely happy with this. You're not completely happy with this.
She doesn't like that she's not able to drink booze for News with Booze. Right, Lily?
Not yet.
Try not to
wait about 20 years.
Time.
Yeah. About 20 years from now, you can get on it. Okay, so first news story. Well, no, I did the Bobcat. That was news.
Yeah,
we were talking, the other day, and then, of course, it escalated. I live in Hampton, and actually, I was working in Norfolk. Now I work at home. But there was a cop who donated $25 to the Kyle Rittenhouse Fund.
Yeah.
And was doxxed. He wasn't the only one, though. There was, I believe, a firefighter who was doxxed. And a reporter, one of your ilk, see, you can't avoid it. We're just going to always, if it's media and we're mad, Allison's a stand-in for that. Went and said, I asked about the donation to Kyle Rittenhouse and did not get a comment.
Mm-hmm.
And then now it turns out that the Norfolk cop has been fired. Now, I'm pretty clear about my feelings on it. I did a little behind the scenes. What are your thoughts, reporter you? No, I'm just kidding.
What are my thoughts about the media's role in
About
that, or the case?
About doxing, about releasing, and then the media actually taking that information and amplifying it.
Right.
You know, it's one thing that the person is doxed, and that's something that bothers me a little bit. And I don't know about you, but okay, let's say, oh, somebody's correcting me. They're from Elizabeth City. It's Norfolk, not Norfolk. It's whatever. Yes. I'm not from around here, but it's Norfolk. I can't do Norfolk. I can't go the full way. Anyway, what do you think about the situation where I see it almost as a cop out? Oh, the information's already out there, so now I can report on it.
I don't know. I think editorial choices should take all of this into account. I think a better example that I recently asked a few of my journalist friends and former bosses about, which may give a little bit of insight into how people think through this, was Seattle police officers were being investigated for being in Washington, D.C. on January 6th. Mm-hmm. And, there may end up being absolutely no evidence that they were a part of anything illegal, but they were in Washington, D.C. And because of that, there was a pretty well-known, not the Times, but I think it was Crosscut, a very well-known papers, going after who are these cops and putting their names out there. Found out one of them, and we're like pretty proud of that. And I had I really didn't like that, and so I didn't know if that was just me. And I just, when they haven't done anything wrong, they're not charged with a crime. And now people are calling for their termination. Now they know their name. Now they're showing up to the house. Now the wife's in danger. All these things. For what? Like, what was the point of publishing that guy's name? So I asked my old boss, and I asked a friend of mine, and basically we were all on the same page that we wouldn't have made that decision. And that we would have waited for there to be an actual crime. Now, like, one of my old bosses said, I guess somebody could argue, what did you think? I think what his exact phrase was, what did you think was going to happen? Why did you go there? You should have known better, and you're charged with protecting the public. And this was obviously going to, and I still think that's a lame reason to publish. I think the only, for me, this is the way I look at a lot of stuff. I've talked about this before, that if whether it's a boycott of like a business or it's a person who does a job, what matters to me more than anything is how the business is doing the thing it does, or how the person is doing the job it does. Everybody has opinions. Everybody has bias, even a journalist, right? It's ridiculous to think that that journalists, hey, Lily, mommy has to be on live YouTube right now.
She has a real opinion there.
Here. Yeah. Here. Have some grass.
I'm going to scream censorship.
Have some grass. I just pick grass and put it on her, and then she has to pick it off. This is called fun rural activities for kids. But I just think that to say that somebody, like, I guess, where does this lead us? At the end of the day, it's like, where does this lead us? If at some point we're going to get to firing people for having ideas that we don't like, related to especially events or cases that a huge amount of people have a particular idea about, it's not, and the person's still doing their job. All right. Like, I guess, I don't know. My concern would be, like, of course, I'm sure you could point out things that maybe a lot of people could agree with. Okay, you can't have that kind of person. But slowly over time, it gets, the line gets moved. And so I guess ultimately I feel like if I were a boss, what I would look at more than anything, I hope, is how the person actually does their job. Like if I knew a journalist, well, I know them. Okay. I already know them. Like I know journalists that have biases that I think are totally idiotic when it comes
Yeah, I know.
to
You've texted me.
What'd you say?
You've texted me before.
Yeah, they're just it's almost painful. It makes my head hurt how dumb of them are with their ideas about COVID. Seriously, that's how I feel. But I wouldn't fire them if they could do their job. Now, their reporting probably sucks, and that's a reason that they should get fired. But having an idea on the side, or like, to me, like, then you're going to have to eventually get rid of everybody, because everybody's going to have eventually, at some point, somebody's going to have an idea that you find idiotic. And so are you just going to have no staff, or like what exactly? I don't know. So I just try to look at it like, if you can do your job, then okay, let's evaluate your job. You could be a really well-rounded individual and be really crappy at your job, and I think you should get fired.
Fair enough.
And I've talked about the Chick-fil-A example.
All right, let me ask another opinion on doxing. Winston, what do you think of doxing?
Lily, you want to see a puppy?
Okay, here we go. If I have
show
to,
Lily the puppy.
if I have to tune off quickly, it's not because I'm getting destroyed by. What is that baby in the middle? Never mind everything.
Can you show her your puppy?
So Winston, it's Winston.
You put Winston in the center of the screen.
Oh,
There.
That's Winston.
Look. Can you see the puppy?
Okay, I'm in love with this kid.
Oh, look at
Love with this kid now. Look at this. Okay, hold on. Oh my god.
Don't end the broadcast. See Winston? You see him?
Look at.
Can you say hi?
That's Winston.
Well, this is the cutest thing I've ever seen in my life. she's trying to kiss the camera.
Yeah.
Okay. All that to say, by the way, that's it. This is the blessing that I was waiting actually to see, that I didn't know I was going to see. Can you hear me properly?
Sure. You sound great.
Okay. If I have to, I'm not going to have to like shut my camera down. My wife is going to come down soon. She has been on duty to put the kids to bed, and it's not been a pleasant duty tonight. What do you say? You said duty.
I know how you feel.
Oh, I feel fine. I did a stream, and then I could hear them screaming. It was not fun. Okay.
Well, I can't even put mine to bed yet because it's still too early, and so she's just here. She's just on the stream.
You have grass behind you. We have snow on the ground here. What's going on back there?
Oh, I'm wearing short sleeves. Yeah, it's not winter everywhere. I mean, isn't Canada at this point like Narnia? It's just always cold and everyone's on lockdown, and you have an ice queen that's running your
It snowed like 4 centimeters or 5, like 2 inches today, and it's April.
No,
and this dog, he will not do his business outside. He's looking for food. What do you think? Hold on, I'm gonna jack up the volume here. Sorry, that's my bad.
No worries.
Where have we gotten to on the conversation tonight?
What we were just talking about, the doxing of the cop who donated to Kyle Rittenhouse's fund, and how he got fired. He's actually in the next town over. And I've got a super chat of somebody who's reliably pretty anti-cop, stating, yeah, good old Mike Bruno. Yes. It's an inside thing. We all know Mike Bruno.
Yeah.
Cop donated to a defendant as a conflict of interest. I'm going to say if it's in the same jurisdiction, yes, but otherwise, no.
No, but
I disagree. Even if he's in the same jurisdiction, I don't think so.
No, but the problem is, and not to empower Mike Bruno with Donald Trump picking his nose. That's a photoshopped image, by the way. He did.
I thought it was cocaine. No.
Oh, shut up. No, I thought he was picking his nose. I'm not joking.
It could be.
No. In fairness to the guy, the details are that he donated through his police account, posted a public comment through his police account, and the public comment was a supportive comment. It might all be different if he had done it through his own private account.
Well, he was dumb, but he did do it anonymously, and they hacked it.
Okay.
So that's
well,
not quite the
that
same.
is
Just because you put the wrong email address doesn't mean,
Hold on.
come on. He had a boomer moment.
Not a disagreement fact. I from what I saw, I was watching Tim Pool and listening to it. I thought I didn't know that they hacked it and that he did not post the comment publicly.
He did not. They hacked the organization that was collecting the information, and we have somebody else who might have input on it.
Oh my goodness. This is
The organization that held the fund was hacked.
Yeah, and to
And
be clear,
they
this is not the Kyle Rittenhouse direct fund. This was done by a Christian organization independent of the Kyle
Yes.
Rittenhouse fundraising. No Kyle Rittenhouse people that are part of the Free Kyle USA fundraising. And if you want to find a link on that, you can find that link at vivabarneslaw.locals.com. Nobody there has been hacked, but the old Christian organization independently fundraised early on. They got hacked, and then their emails is my understanding.
so it was
okay. Well, there
it
you
was
go.
not as though he posted the message willingly through his
Correct.
official account. He did it anonymously, and they hacked it and then
Yes.
posted it.
Yes. That's why I said it's doxing. It was literally.
I'm not judging Tim Pool. I listened to Tim Pool's video. It was 10 hours ago, so it might have been different. I thought he just did it through his official account, made a statement through his official account, and then I could understand it. But if it was anonymous and doxed and hacked, where the hell's Jack Dorsey and the others now on not publishing doxed information or hacked information?
Exactly,
I agree.
and repeated versions of that. I mean, they did it with the Utah guy, with the media person was going to be real brave and bold and challenge this person who gave money to Rittenhouse, bragged about it on Twitter, and again allowed to trend because, I mean, the New York Post story. It was always the irony is one, it wasn't actually hacked material, of course. It was Hunter Biden abandoned his material, and then second, of course, now we see the hypocrisy and duplicity in place.
But that's so that
What is that animal, by the way? Is that an animal I'm hearing or no?
that might be a kid,
that's
Robert.
my daughter.
Oh, you don't. Hey, well, we're all animals at some level. Yeah.
Oh, God.
No,
Yeah,
so
look at how she
that
reacts
would
to
change.
Winston. Hang on.
That would change everything in terms of my understanding, because I thought he did it publicly through the account and it was not hidden or hacked. That changes everything. Breck Nichols.
She's adorable.
Thank
Yes,
you.
she is. And she loves Winston. She loves Winston.
Ah, that's why she's all excited. That's great.
Oh, yeah. Look, I mean, that's a big beaming smile.
Oh. Okay, so that changes everything. If the only reason they got the email address and the identity of the comment was by hacking, changes everything. So
Yes.
I retract. Yeah, it's nuts. It's the parallel economic systems that where's my camera? This is my camera. That Dan Bongino was talking about having to establish. It's like it's a cold civil war where you need to establish parallel economic systems for liberals and Republicans. I mean, I don't even know. It's nuts. It's absolutely nuts.
Are you drinking anything, Viva?
I may go open that bottle that Robert Gruler sent us.
Oh, nice. I'm doing smart mouth. What are you doing, Robert?
So this is a bar. This is a 25-year-old Armagnac. Bar Armagnac. No, Boss. I can't pronounce. How do you? Oh, Viva's gone. I don't know how you pronounce it.
BAS is Ba, right?
How do you say BAS?
Ba.
Ba. So Ba Armagnac de Lord. So Armagnac of the Lord. 25 years old.
Nice.
Let's see that. Armagnac de l'Or. Yeah, that's. I mean, I don't know what that is, but that's beautiful. All that I know, I didn't want to. I feel that I should thank Robert Gruler publicly because he sent me this, and it came from across the border.
Wow.
It's glorious. So I'm gonna.
Isn't it kind of ironic coming from him, though?
Well, I mean,
I
just because you don't drink doesn't mean you can't give drinks.
No. I
know what you mean. I know what you mean. But I thought about that. Like, I realized I wasn't going to drink on his show or have a little because I was like, maybe that's rude or whatnot, you know.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing I felt bad about is like I feel guilty. I always feel guilty getting gifts, but okay,
But if it's good enough, screw it.
Yes, and anybody out there, I do not feel guilty getting good gifts.
No, Robert, Jewish guilt is a terrible thing. It lasts a lifetime. Like someone said, what did I do to do? I don't want this, but what can you do? And it came from New York. So Robert Grulla's gift actually had 2 parts. Shh, quiet for a second. And the one part was the magnifying glass with the books, and it had a note, and it said, "I don't know if you drink." And then there was no alcohol in it, so I thought maybe he decided not to send it for whatever the reason. Then a week later, I get the bottle, and I was like, "Oh, now I see. One came from New York, the other one came from Scottsdale." And let me just see this.
Yeah, in order to do it from Canada, he would have to order it from a New York liquor store.
Oh, it is glorious. It's glorious. I'm gonna hold on a second. Oh, it's glorious, and it's beyond my appreciation scale, but it's glorious. And we got a little F on that glass. I don't know if you can see that.
Oh
Yeah.
my God. Has you been watching your
came from a
stream?
restaurant called Ferreira's, and my parents.
Oh,
Here's a funny true story. My parents go to this restaurant called Ferreira's in Montreal when we had a normal country, and they loved the glasses so much because it had a nice fancy F, and they said, "Oh, it looks like Freiheit, our last name." They stole 2 glasses, and then on the way out, the guy's like, if you wanted a glass, you could just ask for one. So the owner, who knew them well, gave them 2 other glasses. F.
I hope they tipped well.
They're very generous. There's no question about that. But generous and silly at some time. But this was a long time ago.
I love it. Well, while I got you guys on, I know you've had a long evening. You guys did a live stream. I did a live stream. Everybody, you have not talked about, except for the chat in, where is that again, Barnes?
Viva, orangelawlocals.com.
We have not talked about it. Robert, we haven't talked about it.
Yeah, I
Twitter.
did an exclusive discussion just on our Viva Barnes Law Locals board. Decided to do it that way as sort of a service to the board members. We did the same thing on election night. That the only place I was giving betting advice on election night was on the Viva board channel, and those folks cashed in.
If they listened to your advice, they cashed in for sure.
Yes, they did. Yes, correct. And many
Nice.
said thank you. Said they had 3 lifetimes of subscriptions. That's the only place I decided to comment on it. And figured we otherwise would wait to comment on it later.
Robert, let me cut you off. I remember it verbatim because we didn't have futures in Canada. I just had straight up yes or no wins. And Robert said, people asking, do I sell? He said, nothing wrong with cashing out with profits. And it was at the time when it literally peaked. He said, nothing wrong with cashing out with profits. Yeah. And everyone else, like me, because we had no futures, we just had the option. We just had the bet. The only way,
some places you could bet the opposite way. So like Biden dropped to 3-1 or 4-1 around that time period. And so I cashed out of everything. Most of the people that were on the locals board were on futures, on predicted.
Did you bet on Biden, Barnes?
Huh? Did I ever bet on Biden? I just bet out of my positions. I just cashed out.
Okay.
I didn't know but I was in a futures market. I didn't have any live bets on any sports books because they didn't let me go over there this time. Hey, they saved me money, actually. So that's what they get for trying to stiff smart bettors. William Hill's the worst, but that's another story. Apparently, they're getting bought by Caesars. So that's nice because I have a vendetta against those guys. They banned me from their sports book. They ban anybody who makes money. They're just scammers. They should have the William Hill's tagline should be "Losers only welcome." Then they'd at least be honest in their advertising.
Robert, but we haven't talked about it. I know what you said on Twitter.
Yes.
10 hours to deliberate on a 3 legal aspect question, each of which of those charges had multiple prongs. I don't want to say conspiracy, whatever. It's an implausible task to assume. When they came down with the judgment so quickly, I said it has to be acquittal, but I didn't say it publicly because there's no way you get through all of the prongs of all of the charges in 10 hours of deliberation. Yeah. But
it's the way guilty verdicts are. Guilty verdicts are that they've made up their mind early, and it shows you how beyond reasonable doubt doesn't really work. Presumption of innocence doesn't really work because you're right. It's only in a case of an acquittal that you should have a quick verdict. Because hey, we've already decided on this key question. There's reasonable doubt, so that resolves them all. It logically does not make sense that short juries are conviction juries generally, and long juries are acquittal juries, unless you realize most jurors don't apply reasonable doubt. Most jurors don't apply presumption of innocence. I'm the biggest defender, or one of jury trials anywhere, but I'm not naive about how juries operate and function. And I don't celebrate them no matter what the verdict is, and whatnot. This was a jury that made up their mind before they sat down. I mean, we kept talking about it over and over again. Said this is what normally happens. Juries make up their mind before they sit down, and definitely by the end of opening statement. And the only chance the defense had, when I did a jury analysis, the best, most favorable defense analysis still had at least 6 jurors going to be voting guilty out of the box. Well, it turned out it was probably 10 or 11.
But that's what I don't understand. It's like the decision was made long ago. It was quite clear because you cannot deliberate guilty in 10 hours. So they were just done.
Not with a 3-week trial and a legally complicated set of jury instructions.
Well, and that was the other thing is the jury instructions themselves would require a long time to digest and fully appreciate.
And you would get it one question to the judge. Normally you get at least 3 juror questions to a judge in a smaller, simpler case, asking to have evidence reread to them, asking that video evidence be accessible to them. They did none of that. This jury was a joke. I give no respect to this jury. None. They didn't do their job. They didn't uphold their oath. They lied to get on the jury duty when they said they really cared about jury duty. No, they didn't. They disgraced the legal system, and they failed their obligation as citizens, and they failed their obligation in terms of their oath.
But Robert, now in fairness, you have an expert waking up with a pig head.
Good night, Allison. She's got to put the producer up.
I was going to just comment on that back sky being the most relaxing
gorgeous
I've ever seen. But
I see why she lived. I understood the whole living in a trailer thing, which I thought was kind of kooky when I first heard it. I understood it when she's like, their whole point is to force themselves to live outdoors. That's just a place to cook, a place to clean, a place to sleep, like campers. And I think Viva likes to camp. I don't understand camping. Why did God invent indoors if he wanted us to live outdoors?
Well, Robert, the thing about camping is it gives you an excuse to be an animal, which is basically
that's interesting.
Hey, my wife says, "Why do you smell so bad?"
My brother puts it much nicer. He loves fishing. He loves all that fishing and camping, and keeps running into bears, but it doesn't deter him. That makes I like that. That's a good pitch. I'll be caught dead before you find me.
Speaking of, hold on, Barnes, I got to interrupt for a second because you were talking about your fiance. And how she liked to swim with sharks. And all that could pop in my head is, of course, she's with the lawyer.
That's a good one. But she also loved to skydive, jump off bridges. She should have been born in New Zealand because they love all that stuff. I made the mistake once of taking a helicopter. No, that's a piece of plastic in the sky. That's all that thing is. And the New Zealand pilot, the Kiwi pilot, was like, "Oh, this guy's nervous. I'm gonna have some fun with him." So he tried to fly as close to cliffs as he possibly could and do quick dives. And we landed on some glacier. And my fiance was out there like doing snow angels. I wasn't moving because the guy was like, "Hey, if you walk too far this way, it's an 8-mile drop." And I'm like, "I'll stay right here."
This is what I love. Like, I in as much as I know Robert, I don't know Robert at all. And like, he's afraid to get off a helicopter, but he'll pick a fight with like the most notorious gangsters in the world. And I'll jump off a cliff into water that I don't know how deep it is, but I don't want to send a tweet because I don't want to piss somebody off.
Gangsters aren't 500 feet in the air.
No, it's an amazing juxtaposition of actual fear versus reality. It's fascinating.
Yeah, I'm not doing that zip line thing. Ain't no chance I'm getting on one of those things.
Oh, well, I don't blame you. Jesus Christ. And by the way, I can relate to you about the camping.
Crazy zip line thing, didn't you?
Oh, yeah. I used to rock climb, zip line, mountain bike, like that stuff I don't care about. But send a tweet that might get misinterpreted that's going to get King James after me. There. I spent 40 minutes. Do I send this tweet or do I not send this tweet? Like, I don't want. When I retweeted LeBron James's tweet, Robert, I was like, if I'm retweeting this, am I participating in the doxing of this cop, or am I like? And so many thoughts, delusional thoughts. But I have my delusional thoughts and I have my realistic fears. It's very funny. It's just juxtaposition.
That is a crazy case, and he did delete his tweet.
Oh yeah, no, but that confirms my
We hammered him enough that it caused him to do it. Because as soon as he tweeted it out, I was like, here's King James, the new king of the mob, and a bunch of other people started hammering him, and all of a sudden he was like,
Valerie.
Oh, you're next,
Valerie Jarrett or whatever.
You're next.
Yeah, he said you're next.
I don't respond to the obvious trolls because there's a few of them, but when one person says you're next and he means it judicially, Bull crap. Again, that's my next tweet. I have to see how that's doing. Your next means judicially. Get confrontational means nonviolent resistance. But patriotic and what did he say, Robert? What did he say? Patriotic and there was another one. Lawful resistance.
Peaceable.
When Trump says it is insurrection. We're
Yes.
dealing with lies through and through, and just I feel almost at risk of calling out the lies.
It's easy to get King James to back off. Just tell him he's angry in China.
I mean, he's always going to be. I mean, Clay Travis has great fun going after him, and I respect. I mean, he is arguably the greatest basketball player ever. It's just when he
Over Jordan.
Oh yeah, Michael Jordan's overrated. I wouldn't even put him in my top 5. So you want controversial opinions? That will top the OJ is innocent opinion. Michael Jordan was a over the top, overrated guy. I'll just quote Wilt Chamberlain.
Larry Bird.
Oh, now Larry Legend was one of the greatest of all time. I mean, I grew up on Larry Bird. I was a huge fan of Larry Bird since the time I was 6 years old. So I've always loved Bird. I mean, he was a team player. But Wilt Chamberlain put it best. He said, if a league changes the rules to stop you from scoring, then maybe you're better than the guy that the league had to change the rules to help you score. And that's the difference between Wilt Chamberlain and Michael Jordan.
Now, was that between Wilt Chamberlain betting how many people? Yeah,
10,000. That's
a new scoring.
10,000 women. You never know, Wilt. Well, he did score 100 points in a game, so
he scored. He definitely scored something.
I am a noob when it comes to basketball, football, baseball. In fact, the only sports I know through and through: bowling and poker.
Really? So, a bit of a hockey fan, soccer fan?
No, not whatsoever. UFC also.
But you went to the hockey game with your kid. So that was just the joy of it.
Oh God, that was back when we had a normal life, and I watched those videos. Robert, whenever you put those videos out, it's like a needle in my heart. It's like, this is what free society looks like, and this is the regime under which you're living.
That is just insane. Did I see it was snowing in Quebec today?
It was snowing. It was like almost 4 inches today. It's nuts. And in fairness, for anybody who's watching me on Twitter, I deleted a tweet off David Hogg because David Hogg posted a picture of snow, and I said global warming. And I see how those tweets, they don't translate in terms of humor. They only are read seriously. And I didn't want anyone thinking I was, whatever.
Well, David Hogg, dude. I mean, that's just now you're asking Twitter to get on your shit anyway.
Well, no. It's very important to hear what people you disagree with have to say. David Hogg,
I didn't say to not listen. Just going after him is useless.
Occasionally, I try to fraternize with the enemy in the sense that I want to show people who I disagree with that I can still have fun with them.
But they don't have humor. You're funny. You have a sense of humor. So you're already behind the 8 ball. I'm serious. You say something, it's tongue in cheek.
Combination.
Yeah. I mean, you're screwed on that. Sorry, but he has a zero sense of humor. Like anybody woke.
The sense of self, I've noticed it. The sense of self-righteousness goes up with the decrease of sense of humor. I don't know if it's political, but I see it in real time with real people that I know personally. But Robert, more particularly,
sure.
Are we going to appeal, and are they going to get this appealed because of what Maxine Waters said? We're going to talk about this Sunday, and I just have to remember that we have not talked about it publicly on my channel. But Robert, are they going to get this overturned?
Don't worry, nobody will notice.
Well, no, because I sometimes I take for granted that what I've talked about on other channels, I don't go over it when we do a live stream on Sunday. This is going to get overturned on appeal, and Maxine Waters should be the one to blame for this, correct?
It's only if the Minnesota Supreme Court or U.S. Supreme Court takes it. I don't think the Minnesota Court of Appeals, that they're very to the left. I mean, they're the ones who reinstated the 3rd-degree murder charge in ways that still don't make sense to me. There was actually a lefty criminal defense lawyer who brags about being a constitutional cultist, who wrote an article saying how
is he the one you tweeted?
Yeah, because it was a ridiculous piece. He was like, he has no, and clearly he hadn't even, you read the piece, he hasn't actually read the underlying cases, doesn't even understand the underlying argument. But I just responded to this guy and the other guy that retweeted him saying, I'll choose Dershowitz over this guy. Is
this the guy who said, He said he would not do the case with Dershowitz, right?
Yeah, that was his response. I wouldn't even take a case like this with Dershowitz. I'm like, that you're just and by the way, he was defended as his piece was better because he was not partisan and he's totally honest. And I was like, no, he's not. He's a dishonest partisan hack. It was a version of confession through projection. What he accused Dershowitz of is what he is. And so I just use it as an example of confession through projection. Because like what I know of no self-respecting criminal defense lawyer who's a constitutional cultist who would say, I don't want to work with the lawyer who's had more success in criminal defense lawyer difficult cases than any lawyer maybe ever in American history and one of the great constitutional legal minds of our entire history. I was like, when you say that, you're just telling me you're a partisan hack and you're stupid. And so, I just had to.
Well, he's a right winger like Brett Stevens of the New York Times.
Yeah, I mean, it's like all those guys. I mean, the left, the legal. It's amazing how much they love this mob justice. They celebrate it. They jump up and down with it and champion it. So it made sense for LeBron James and BLM and Antifa to say all the stuff they were saying.
But Robert, this is a serious question. When LeBron James tweets out, "You're next," hashtag accountability because it was not a threat. Does he not see the video? Does he have people tweeting at his account out? I don't know how this works.
I think he probably answered before he saw it.
He just saw the headlines and thought this is a great chance for him to be the ultimate virtue signaler.
But you have to be stupid at this point in time to tweet anything else based on the headlines.
Pretending he was reading a book that he hadn't even got through. He was pretending that he knew this stuff about Malcolm X, and then he started talking. It was like, he hasn't even read the book. I mean, that happened to me when I was at Yale as an undergrad. It turned out, I don't know if you ever had this. Sometimes they put 2 books in one book. Well, I found that out, but I didn't know that until then. So I showed up at class. It was like the 3rd month or whatever. And I hadn't read any of the book. And so the guy asked me what I thought about the teaching assistant. What do you think about the book? Oh, it was good. Hear this. And he goes, what do you think about this other book? And while I got this book in front of me, because I hadn't read either one, I didn't open the first page. I didn't read the cover. I was like, I don't have that book yet. And and everybody in class started laughing. I was like, that's so funny. He's like, that's the book in front of you. I was like, oh, well, okay. I don't know how to do anything. But, what happens is, and that's who LeBron is. He just wants to chase everybody and be ahead of the.
But you have to get burnt once and then never do it again. But
you would think, but he doesn't get meaningfully burnt.
Everybody's going to kowtow.
Approval from still approve of him.
Sure.
That's the problem. These people don't pay a real price. I mean, the NBA has the lowest ratings it ever has, that it's ever had. You would think they would be thinking, hold on a second, but nope, they just keep charging forward, doubling down
because it's so over the top. And then, but then meanwhile, because you have LeBron James doing that, but then you have the woman from Barack Obama's. I'm not going to remember her name.
Valerie Jarrett.
Yes,
brain behind the scenes.
Valerie
was always
Jarrett,
complaining to Barack about
Roseanne Barr's nemesis.
Oh
yes.
Okay, this is how naive I am. I said she looked familiar, but I couldn't remember where. Valerie Jarrett was the infamous Roseanne Barr. Okay, so she tweets out, a cop comes in and shoots somebody in the middle of a knife fight. And I swear to God, I thought she was joking because I read this tweet. I said, God, sorry. I swear to the Lord, gee. I said, this has to be a satire because she's saying she's criticizing a cop for shooting someone in the middle of a knife fight. And then I said, a knife fight when one person doesn't have a knife is called a stabbing. And like, but I don't know how they do this. And then you have the person from some BLM enterprise. I don't know what she has because she had 500,000 followers on Twitter when I saw that she had a protected account based on a previous tweet. I don't know how they do this where they say like, yeah, it's just a knife fight. And then a knife fight, assuming both had knives, which they didn't, it's a stabbing. And you have people actually complaining that a white cop saved a 15-year-old black girl from getting stabbed by someone else who happens to be a 16-year-old black girl, and they racialize it to demonize the cop. I feel like I'm taking crazy pills.
But by the way, the girl in pink had a little dog or a cat. Did you notice that?
I did not notice that. I noticed your comment. She brought a little dog or a cat to a knife.
Yeah, I mean, so that she's holding. If you look at her, she's holding this, and when you watch a video, see the poor thing down below, kind of going. What I mean, she was very, in my mind, obviously scared that she was getting threatened. Nate did a great job breaking it down. I mean, she was leaning against it. Her leg was up. She was protecting. She dropped this animal. I mean, that was a full-on attack. In all fairness, you know, if that was my daughter, I don't have any kids, but Jesus, I'd be saying thank you to the cop. Right. Because that was...
well,
I mean, that was an imminent threat. And everybody's like, well, couldn't you subdue? From what? From 15 feet away?
In the story, remember how the story started? There was no knife at all. She was just shot 4 times for standing on the front porch. That's how the story was first told by the media.
And not just that, but I think it was Michael Malice in all of his trolldom said, couldn't they have just shot the knife out of her hand? Like, the thing is, I don't like the sass, I don't like the snark, I don't like the cynicism.
That's Michael
But then
Malice.
you appreciate and I'm fairly certain it was Michael Malice. But you appreciate the cynicism of the absurdity where the parody becomes reality. The parody becomes reality is like, couldn't they just shoot the blade out of her hand? Because I saw that happen in a movie. And
I'm just waiting for them to say maybe they could have put her in the prone position.
No, but they said taser was the first. Taser is the most obvious.
Taser, like the person that just shot because they accidentally pulled the taser. I mean, it's getting to the point where
it's not going to freeze when. I mean, it was on a down. Honestly, it was lucky that she was even stopped with the shots.
That's my initial reaction. I said, even if it's a taser, tasers are not. I've never been tased. I don't know, but I assume that the taser is. Even if you get the prongs in, if it's a projectile taser, it may not immobilize immediately, and that's a one-strike thing. But people actually literally said this, like, oh, they could have tased her, and then they made the joke, like, if the cop just pretended the taser was a cop, it's all nuts. You actually have a 16-year-old kid, and I'll refer to her as a kid because I still think she's a kid, but a 16-year-old who is going to stab someone. And the cop stops it in a split fucking second. And instead of hailing this cop as a hero, they demonize him as a murderer of a child because he actually saved another kid from getting stabbed. It's a bizarro upside down world. I swore. I apologize.
It's sort of the extension. I mean, we're seeing the late 60s all over again. And the goal is
I wasn't alive. I don't know what the 60s look like. I don't like what it looked like if it looked like this.
Well, none of us were, by the way. None of us were. Thank God.
You know why J.D. Vance's mama loved Dirty Harry? Because she does remember that time period, and that's the cultural backlash that usually comes. Because first, what happens is cops stop policing, and then they become super cops or real aggressive. They're Charles Bronson and Dirty Harry style era, and the public wants it. The public even demands it because they get tired of seeing the consequences of not policing. But we're probably going to go through a substantial time period in big cities. If I was a cop, I'm just going to avoid anything that could be trouble, one way or the other. You stab yourself, whatever, shoot somebody, I don't care. Die of an OD.
Did you see Cernovich? Cernovich said it well. He's like, everybody move out of the big city, get in a highly red area and buy a gun.
Yeah. Well, Tim Pool saying the same thing. And someone, this is the absurdity of the world in which we live. Someone said, I don't know if they were serious or not. He should have let her stab the kid and then applied, whatever they call resuscitation to the kid, and waited for the cops to come to arrest the other girl. And I thought it was irony, and I thought it was satire. And whether or not it was 50-50 in the comment response. Some people like, yeah, absolutely, you're right. Why shoot her? Others like, are you effing kidding me? And nobody even knows because we've gotten to such a level of absurdity, of reality, that it doesn't make sense. Let me see. I'm on my phone, so I can't read that.
No problem. A crack shot, split second timing under the wire before she finished her stabbing motion on the other girl. Where's this guy's attaboy? And that's the thing. Honestly, the performance, just the tactical performance of the cop was outstanding.
He saw it, and nobody else saw it. And thank goodness they decided to release the body cam. But he saw it, and then the media edits it out because it's not to. This is the deal. He didn't kill a girl, he saved a girl. And that's how nobody's going to frame it that way. But when I saw that, to say that he killed someone as opposed to saved someone is an atrocious bastardization of reality that makes the mainstream media the enemy of the people.
There was also the other attack that was just to the right of him too. So
the guy that
there was two attacks. No, there's two attacks. I mean, it's like a gang violence. And I mean, the amount of pressure he was in, that is one cool, quick cop.
But LeBron James says you're next.
It was a bad Saturday at Bad Saturday at a Waffle House. I don't know if you saw that fight.
No,
They took apart the whole Waffle House. Everybody just fight. That's the thing is, there's a certain subculture of violence that's not race specific. It just exists across the world,
True.
just depending on which subculture you're in. I always give Leonard Skinner as my example. They used to love to go after they would play. They would go to a bar for the purpose of getting into a brawl. That's where the "Give Me 3 Steps" song came from. When they overstepped their bounds, it's like, just give me 3 steps before you shoot me, so I can get out the door. But you know, that's
Thomas Sowell.
Well, I mean, JD Vance comes from
black
that.
rednecks, white liberals. That's it.
And it's the JD Vance, like, you know, in a rural Ohio, rural Kentucky, and I say this without judgment. It's by no means anything I've ever known or grown up with. Insult my mother. For me, dude, my father taught me to live another day, not to defend my mother's honor. It's like, someone insults your mother, go home and tell mom. But it's not racial. It's not ideological.
Cultural.
It's just you know, environment.
Different subcultures. It's how they act. It was like, you know, I mean, JD Vance's grandmother told his grandfather, "You better not come home drunk tonight, or I'm gonna kill you." He came home drunk, so she lit him on fire. He probably didn't come out. He probably didn't drink for a while after that. So
I think that was the point at which he stopped drinking, Robert.
Yes, I mean, hey, you learn your lesson. You wake up on fire. Like, bad idea.
It was only because one of the other kids put him out. Like, and he was lucky to escape with minor burns. It's
yes.
No, but it's just madness. It's the crop. But it is. I bring it all back. I hate mainstream media, and I bring it all back to them. They crop it out. They reword it. It's like, oh, a knife was found next to her. No, she had a knife, and she was right about to stab a girl who was 1 year younger than her, and the other girl that fell to the ground, another dude's right about to
was kicking
her in the head. And that's the same dude that the media quotes as saying, "You just shot a little girl." Like, it's just, and then they interview the mother afterwards, and not the mother, sorry, the aunt, and the aunt says she was a peace-loving, mother type figure. There is no question in my mind the media planted that statement, because whatever, and it's on par. It's on the same level with Nathan Phillips describing what happened with the Covington kids. You have this mother publishing a known lie that the media then publishes in order to demonize a cop who literally just saved a girl's life. It's
she's lucky. What the aunt knows and the other family members know, you set up a GoFundMe. You can get a couple $100,000 maybe if you do it quick before the real story comes out. And maybe you hire Ben Crump, and that little race baiter, race grifter comes rolling in, and he'll make you rich and himself rich at the same time. This is the guy that makes Al Sharpton look like a beacon of legal integrity.
Now, here's the question, Robert.
Wow.
You might be, again, so far ahead of the curve that nobody's going to appreciate it. Ben Crump is not involved yet, right?
Not yet.
When it happens, Eric, this is
Underline
the
yet.
highlight moment. Predicting the future is only about seeing above the mountains. I just made that up.
And I wasn't going to start publicly bashing Crump until he decided to take some pot shots at Rittenhouse. So I was like, pal, this had nothing to do with you. You've been a grifter your whole legal career. You've been a race baiter your whole legal career. You've built your entire portfolio on lies. So now, he's going to become a worthy recipient of public exposure, like he likes to try to dish out to other people.
Okay, so let's get back to the reactions. Now, Barnes, I will admit, I mean, early on, you had been fretting, that'd be the best term I could think of it, the whole time, saying you knew what Eric Nelson was doing, but you thought he was probably wrong, that the prosecution is correct. It was emotional. The jury made up their mind. He was going for logical. Did this essentially prove you right?
Yeah, and my biggest concern was there are two things that lawyers just still don't appreciate. That number one, that jurors don't make their decision based on facts and logic and law. That's just not the way their brains work. And the decisions are by
that's life.
Yeah, exactly. But most lawyers don't recognize this, because in parts because we're taught to think like a lawyer and all that jazz. But our jury instructions presume that they sit there and read and understand and apply, etc. But the reality is 80% of them, I mean, like most jurors have no jurors selection experts helping them out. Here was a giveaway that Nelson was in trouble. He had no body language people in that courtroom with him. And since you couldn't see the jurors from a distance, it's like, okay, how exactly are you reading this jury?
Yeah.
I mean, who's helping you? It turns
But
out it was
Robert,
just him.
how about if you just take for granted that it was a done deal, fait accompli from the beginning? I may not have appreciated it, but it was a done deal. So all that Nelson could do was get enough ammunition for an appeal. And, he did it with Maxine Waters. He did it with some of the expert stuff. He did it with some statements made. So all that he could do is build up the fodder for an appeal because it was a done deal from the beginning. Reading this now backwards, it was a done deal from day one.
But even there, he could have done polling to prove that going in. So almost no lawyers use pollsters, which makes no sense. This is a judge that if you would have put in front of him a well-respected psychologist, a well-respected pollster to say they've looked at the data, they've looked at the focus groups, and that basically they're, number one, that Minneapolis was hopelessly contaminated, and number two, that rural Minnesota, and I would do it by media market, so do Duluth, do the north. My guess is the western Minnesota, northern Minnesota, in I think at the Fargo media market. My guess is you'd find a bunch more fair jurors, and that you could have developed data to prove it with experts that he would respect. Because his whole point was, you haven't convinced me that there'll be any difference no matter where we try it. That's never going to be true. So, I mean, we've been through this before. Rodney King, very different juror pools between LA and the Valley, even though that too had massive media saturation. Diallo case in New York, massive media saturation.
It didn't have social media, though, Barnes. It didn't have social media.
Yeah, yes,
and it doesn't make a difference.
No,
but here's the reality. What you're really dealing with is political bias. That in a community with 60% Republicans, you're going to find at least a third of them, a third of the whole community, that will be impartial on the case. Because of their experience. In Minneapolis, with the main point I made was jury pool is probably 90% Biden voters, and Biden voters said almost 90% said guilty before the trial started. Right. Not like 60% and 20 and a bunch of people. They had the option of saying they didn't know. They said 88%.
They had Biden say
guilty. I mean, that's a lynching jury, and the judge didn't take it seriously, in part because Nelson did not present him any evidence beyond general claims, didn't give him the data to back it up.
Actually, one bigger thing is sentencing is going to be the biggest issue. So the judge himself is going to do the sentencing.
Yeah, it'll probably be 18 years.
Okay, so 18 years, and then does he get like a parole option after 9?
Yeah, you'll usually do that about halftime in the state system. I don't know about Minnesota in particular, but that's pretty much the norm. So you expect him to do 10. So and it's not much more time than the plea deal that he was.
Yeah, that was one of the questions. The actual practical questions. He was ready.
I mean, this is why he kind of resigned. People were surprised by his he knew he was going in.
Well, apparently he had written his lawyer's number on his hand, as in he might have forgotten it. That was the only number he needed when he went to jail, and he knew he was going to jail. But the question was going to be, in terms of the appeal, how long does an appeal take? We're going to talk about this Sunday, people, whoever's watching.
Yeah.
How long?
At least probably a year, 18 months before the Court of Appeals hears it. Another year before the Minnesota Supreme Court decides whether to take it.
And he's in jail this entire time. There's no question about that.
Yes.
One question.
Go for it. Sorry.
The second degree, the felony murder. Could this be the case that can go all the way up?
The big issue. There's a lot of legal issues in this case. I think the one that will get the most political attention, and this is why Dershowitz is aggressive. Dershowitz knows that if you aggressively frame an issue in the public debate, it will get the court's attention over time. And obviously, he doesn't represent Chauvin, not a fan of Chauvin, but his point is he's bothered by this precedent being set for some of the same reasons that I'm bothered by it, which is that, actually, these same reasons, that this is mob justice. And if we don't fix this, it will happen to whomever, whenever, wherever. And maybe, the people that are cheering it now may learn to regret it when it comes upon them. And Dershowitz is old enough to know that's usually how it goes. But the felony murder is a major problem, especially given how the prosecutors defined it in closing. So that's problem one. Problem two is third degree murder. It says others, not others, that their interpretation makes no sense. I think both of those are, if they apply the law, both of those charges get thrown out. The big question is, will they have the political courage to apply the law? And then it will be a potentially Sam Shepard, the fugitive style case. For those who don't know, Dr. Shams Shepard, doctor who in inflammatory jury pool got wrongfully convicted, became the basis of the TV show Fugitive, then the movie The Fugitive, which the successor was U.S. Marshals, which Wesley Snipes was in. And because Snipes, you know why Wes got treated great during the whole criminal trial process, because all the marshals loved him from that movie. So they were like totally, I was like, wow, it's amazing. He plays this character, but it's their favorite all-time marshal character. And so going into the courthouse got treated great. Leaving the courthouse, it was amazing, because they otherwise hated us because the judge hated us, but not Wes. He could do no harm. And there were some funny guys too. They're old school marshals, but this venue is as bad as it gets. And just Maxine Waters, I think, was the tipping factor.
Well, it would be the ultimate of irony is if the conviction gets overturned because of stupid comments made by a Democrat politician on the eve of deliberations. And in my mind, it's a no-brainer. But what do I know anymore? Like, it's a no-brainer. There is no way that any jury member could be expected to deliberate honestly and openly, knowing that there will be mass destruction if they don't render the decision that. How long has Maxine Waters been in office for? 40 years?
Almost too long. 30 years. 40 years too long.
So
she's become real wealthy while she's in office.
As do they all. It's a beautiful thing. They become wealthy and wealthy and wealthy.
Great documentary. I'm going to do a little Viva Barnes Law.locals.com movie review on it, which is White Boy Rick. Great documentary on Netflix. I didn't know how crazy that case was.
Okay, I'm watching that tomorrow.
Yeah, because it involves the guy from Beverly Hills Cop, who was the real detective from Detroit. Turns out he was deeply corrupt and helped frame that kid and keep him in prison forever. So I was like, I mean, this story has everything. It has corrupt state officers, city officers, county officers, conflicted defense counsel, major drug dealers, corrupt mayor, corrupt FBI. The FBI put a 14-year-old kid as an informant to get involved, to infiltrate the drug trade, and then later let him get railroaded. I mean, it's just like one thing after the next, after the next, it's an amazing story.
What's it called again?
White Boy Rick.
White Boy Rick.
Now, there's a movie, but this is the documentary. That's
I only want to watch the documentary. I'm not interested in movies anymore. I just want information. Okay, I'm watching that this weekend.
Great. Really well done. Brilliant expose. Understands how the politics works in the law. I mean, just multiple layers of it. But I think the venue issue, it'll be all of the venue issues. So it'll be the venue, letting the trial happen there.
No sequestering it.
Not sequestering them throughout the trial. Not expanding the jury pool to at least, even if you're going to have Minneapolis jurors, have some other jurors too. None of that. Here's the other thing. What all these people were forgetting when Biden was yipping and the mayor was yipping and the governor was yipping, is there's still a trial coming with 3 other defendants. So, by golly, this judge better move that trial, because it would be
felony murder on all 3.
For aiding and abetting the same charge. So it's like, hold on a second. They just condemned all these. It was only Chauvin, theoretically. Practically, it applies to them. There's no chance that those 3 guys can get a fair trial in Minneapolis. I mean, there was no chance that Chauvin could, but there's absolutely no chance that those guys can. So if this judge is conscientious, he'll move that trial. If he doesn't, then he's really overcommitted, because by this point, even the judge has to know that this was not a fair trial. Judges know when a jury comes back like that, not a single question.
10 hours on 3 charges. All
on a
3 of the charges have
week trial.
And this is the thing, is like the jury instructions, the multiple levels to each of the charges, multiple elements of evidence, proof, and intent. 10 hours it's. When I heard the 10 hours, like, oh, crap. I mean, my prediction may become right because they didn't prove the essential element of excessive force. But then it's...
Yeah, I tweeted out, this means conviction. Because unfortunately, I've met that jury. So the bad juries always come back quick. It disabuses you very early on about the illusion of how the jury process works. And you learn the hard way. I had a good jury that convicted my client. I was described in the press. I said, the government, they described it as the government says he's a Ponzi schemer. Mr. Barnes says he's just a hard luck dreamer. And that was a good pitch. It was a heck of a reach, unfortunately. It turned out he did, well, he was, let's just say they had documentation at trial that he had Madoff-style accounting systems. So his solution to when he got into trouble was, I'll just send out a notice that says your investment's doing very well. And then, he spent some money on some Ferraris and Lamborghinis and Vegas strippers and whatnot. I tried to explain that, but, it was what it was. But that jury took longer in jury deliberations than the trial took. And it was because they wanted to be real conscientious, really fair, really thorough.
Ask questions if you have a question on the evidentiary burden of proof. It was
multiple jury questions. The judge was so panicky that he thought that he gave them ex parte jury instructions without my presence. Didn't tell me about it until the jury came back because he thought I'd done some sort of voodoo and got an acquittal that was politically a hot case. So he was enraged. But because he screwed up so bad, because now it's patently illegal. And what's amazing is the court reporter covered it up. The U.S. Marshal covered it up. The law clerks covered it up. Whenever somebody tells me no conspiracy can happen without all these people, I've seen him in my own life.
Here's Barnes afraid to get into a helicopter after all of this.
yeah, exactly. But ultimately, because he screwed up so bad and wanted to cover it, he gave him a lower sentence than the plea deal. So he ended up getting a net plus, despite jury conviction. But otherwise, bad juries, they always come back within an hour or two or very quickly. And here's my guess. My guess is they thought this was long. They probably they went in and voted guilty right away. Maybe had a few holdouts and pushed them over, and then said, well, we probably should wait a day. This is my guess. That's what and watch. One or two of them is cutting a deal as we speak.
I was good. You're going to say one or two.
The book deals?
Book deal, movie deal, media deal.
If Amy Coney Barrett's selling boring ass Supreme Court memoirs for $2 million, all of these people have secured $5 million book deals. Yes. The trial of the century.
And that's the other dangerous thing. The lesson, everybody's going to get the lesson from this. Join the mob, you'll get rewarded and celebrated every way possible. It's a scary, scary precedent. And they're going to try to do the same thing in the Rittenhouse case. So
somebody was asking about that. What do you think about the hot takes like Scott Adams, Greg Gutfeld?
Scott Adams' hot take was well, at least the one I saw, where he said, human sacrifice doesn't always equal justice. I was like, that is a brilliant way to characterize it.
The problem is this, Robert. I could see Chauvin being guilty. I mean, I said it from the beginning, like, I feel that he's guilty.
He was not innocent. Whatever you look at, he was not innocent.
He might have been
he was morally guilty of something. Whether or not it was the top charge is a different thing. But in law, and this is despite my beliefs, not because of them, I think the defense raised a reasonable doubt on the essential element of excessive force. But when you have to come back,
if they come back with convictions after 2 weeks and lots of questions and then everybody would have more confidence in this outcome.
Sure.
And if they'd split the verdict, said yes on one thing, no on another thing, more confidence in the outcome.
Or manslaughter.
In fairness, once they got him on felony murder, the other two charges become academic, which is the fundamental problem with the felony murder. It's harder to prove manslaughter than felony murder. So once they came up with felony murder, who gives a crap about the other two? But
it would make them look better. It would make it look like they really dug through. They separated out counts, thought of this, didn't think of that. When this jury, I mean, I think they think that they're heroes, and the media will celebrate them as such. But the reality is that for those who are observers, I mean, if you think about it, I mean, Dershowitz denounced it. He was not a Chauvin fan at all. Grueller had problems with it. He's a very anti-police abuse guy. Myself, I mean, Viva, I mean, almost all of us started out believing Chauvin guilty before all the evidence came out. So it's not like we're like huge Chauvin or police abuse backers, or we're not just back the blue blind people. And all came back and said, even if you thought this was the right verdict, the way this came about is deeply problematic.
Yeah.
By the way, I posted a White Boy in the chat.
White Boy Rick?
No, it's White Boy on Netflix. The documentary is just called White Boy.
It's called White Boy?
Yeah.
Interesting.
I'm gonna watch it. I'm gonna watch it for
anyway,
sure.
It's in the chat. Boom, that right there. Oh.
I can't see it too good.
Okay, I've got somebody in the chat that's asking really quickly, is there anything you can say about Rittenhouse? Do you have any worries about that situation with this?
We got to double down. Got to build a big team and got to find every way let's say, Eric, we may know some mutual friends who will be assisting with the case. So put it that way.
Go figure.
So I'm going to go whole hog.
It's not me.
Good.
Just want everyone to know, it's not me. I have no idea what they're talking about right now, people. I'm just going to go duck out here.
Yeah, exactly. Viva's the secret support of all of it. All the co-conspirators. He's the one that meets with the Russian bots. The
Mossad. It's Mossad.
He's
Oh,
a
yeah,
documentary.
Mossad. That's right,
documentary.
That's always my favorite part. Like when they think Alex Jones is a secret Mossad agent. I was like, that's when you think Alex Jones is secretly part of the system, you've really gone down the rabbit hole,
Robert,
and you jumped down the wrong one.
There were a few people in our JD Vance accusing JD of being I don't even know what, like controlled opposition. I don't know how these things work. The bottom line is you could see things two ways regardless of how you want to see it. There's always two ways to see it. So you're either legit opposition or you're controlled opposition.
The thing with JD Vance is that he had an easy choice to keep his mouth shut and play ball and get all the accreditation he wanted.
True.
In 2016 and 2017, he muted his support for Trump, said, I have problems with his personality. And as long as he did that, he was writing for the New York Times, on CNN, getting all the big gigs, all the media celebrity, the next book deal, the next foundation contract. Yep. And he was subtle about how he talked about it on Sidebar tonight. But that's what I wanted to get that out so that people understood. They're like, oh, but he wasn't with Trump in 2016. He was doing the politically savvy thing for a guy in his space. And then and he just made a decision. He's like, screw it. I'm going to say whatever I feel like saying and do it. That's like there was one guy's like, oh, he'll be intimidated. If you understand anything about his life story and where he came from, there's zero chance of intimidation of JD Vance.
That's
JD does not look the type of guy who gets intimidated. Nobody who spends 4 years in the military gets intimidated in the political sense.
And it'd be like saying Lynn would get intimidated. I mean, there's people in the world you intimidate. A Marine ain't one of them.
Fair enough.
At least of all, a Marine from Appalachia. I mean, his mama taught him how to shoot when he was 7. By
the way, a Marine from Appalachia is redundant.
Sorry?
A Marine from Appalachia, because they'll say Appalachia in that area.
Yes.
That's redundant.
Yeah, it is redundant.
And everybody. Okay, $5 for Winston. Thank you, Winston.
His face is wet, and I don't know why his face is wet. And then he does this thing where he eats poo-poo. And then I open up his mouth and I look in the back of his teeth, and he's got it stuck in the back of his teeth. You have any poop there? He's got poop. There's poop in there. That was the guilty look. It's disgusting.
Oh my God.
I love this
All
dog.
right,
I love this dog.
Yes, we could tell. Well, hey guys, thank you so much. This has been phenomenal. There's so much more to cover. I think we may see Barnes next Thursday. I'm not sure, with Nikki Klein.
Oh yeah, because she reached out to me and she had a point. Obviously, she's wasn't happy with certain comments, and I told her, yeah, you're right. That someone isn't entitled to judge you from an armchair, and that I have no idea who you are, what that's a fair. And the other fair criticism is that we've only seen the prosecutorial perspective in the press about the case.
True.
And maybe we should listen to the defense side before we come to a conclusive judgment. So I thought, and she was fair in her response back. She could have been snideful or something else. She wasn't. She was like, that's a very fair statement. So I was like, okay, all right.
That's how I approached her. I said that I do think she was in a cult, but I also think it's possible that prosecutorial misconduct took place. Two things can be true at once.
She made a good point. I mean, what I said was, I honestly don't know. I've seen the prosecutorial perspective. I haven't heard the other side. Her other point that I thought was a good tweet today was she was saying that process matters even if you think someone's guilty. And that's absolutely true. The process is there because sooner or later it'll be the innocent it punishes. And if you don't apply the process when you think the person is guilty, then it's the innocent who will ultimately suffer for it. And this is no better case of this than Chauvin. The guy was going to jail no matter what because of the tax and other charges he faced. This was a show trial to say, way to go, mob. We're going to reward you, mob. BLM went out and took credit for it, said Yahoo. LeBron James said, hey, white boy, you're next. Random police officer. And that's a scary world to live in. These are people that think that they can carry around lynching ropes and just looking for a tree and a person.
So hey, David, really quickly, everybody's saying Winston has a mineral deficiency, and that's why he's eating poo.
We've looked at that. He just has an appetite efficiency. But I will feed him bananas and I will look into the mineral stuff. But with Nikki Klein, by the way, just so we go, I've been following her now, and it is an amazing thing where people reflexively have the tendency of thinking that a woman who might be making a legitimate voluntary decision is a victim somehow. And
Sure.
And then the thing is, the more someone protests, the more you think they're a victim of their circumstance. And so I know nothing of Nikki. I know nothing of the situation. And I think I prefaced it sufficiently when we did this. But I've been following her tweets. She seems conscientious. She could be a very belligerent person who's absorbed within the cult and whatever. But she seems reasonable in her objections. And the objections seem reasonable. It's,
and I think my perspective is, I always want people to give my clients a fair hearing when they come in with a presumption of guilt.
Oh, for sure.
So I should have the minimal modicum of extending the same favor to someone else.
And not just that, if she agrees to have the discussion with you, that is already 10 steps further than
Hugely in her favor.
Brian Stetler and other names, which I will not mention. I don't want to be accused. But the willingness to sit down and have the discussion with someone who you feel has wronged you is an amazing thing, and it's worthy of recognition. So that'll be very interesting.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. So, sort of looking forward to it because I already told her, yeah, you can kick my ass for a while. Fine.
She's gonna, Eric, she might kick your ass. We may have all been wrong. From beginning to end, we may have all been wrong.
I mean, I have no doubt misconduct happened in the case, given who prosecuted it. It's just it's the stepsister of the Southern District of New York, the Eastern District of New York. It's a politically controversial defendant. That's where you get away with most of this, and you use them to set bad precedents. And there are some weird components to the case, in the sense of some of the things that it's like, what's the line exactly between persuasion and criminality? And it seems like the prosecution was trying to blur that line, because knowing that this guy was very unpopular, but that's not who they're going to use it against next. And I think that's that's a legitimate concern as well. And again, I've only seen the prosecutorial side. I found the prosecutorial side persuasive in the sense of what the press said in the two documentaries that I watched, but that doesn't mean it's the only side or ultimately the correct one.
Is this like Bugliosi and Manson? Possibly.
Yes, potentially, yes, in a similar context, because I mean, they always use people like this to create terrible law. And so people that are really controversial, especially once they got the Seagrams and the other folks to not be part of the defense, which is very important, then you can create law. I think that's what bothered Scott Adams. Scott Adams was like, it sounds to me like they're kind of criminalizing persuasion. That he's like, where exactly is the consent boundary? Is now we're going to call things not consent that, I mean, does the state get to make a unilateral determination of that? Because if they do, where exactly those boundaries go and stop? That is a concern. I mean, because cult behavior by itself is not criminal, even if it was a cult.
No,
and that's a problem. And there was
most religions started as such.
That seemed to suggest that it was, and I was like, okay, what exactly line did they draw here? Now they had him on some basic charges that are just tough for him to defend, independent of that.
Right.
But I think there's a legitimate concern on the other part. And it's, again, she deserves a fair hearing because no one else has obviously provided it.
Yeah, and she's out there. She's doing it. I mean, she's given up everything. I mean, she has really, I do admit she could benefit by going out, doing the full circuit and saying, yep, I was brainwashed. Yep, everything is bad, and probably benefit more than she is right now sticking to her guns. So,
you get sweet documentary deals like several people did.
Right.
Not to mention anybody in Malibu in particular in that matter.
Either way, it should be fun. I mean, well, not fun, but it should be quite interesting. I think it's compelling. Yes, definitely enlightening. And hopefully you'll be watching, David.
I will certainly be watching. Guarantee you that much.
And next Wednesday, we got Scott Rouse. Scott's going to be our sidebar guest next week.
Oh, fantastic. Are you going to go through the whole panel?
Yeah, ultimately.
I've got to start doing some homework for next Wednesday, but I've got to start doing some publishing for tomorrow, Thursday.
I didn't know Mark Bowden was the guy who famously streaked on a soccer field. I didn't know that.
Mark Bowden. Huh? Mark Bowden, yeah.
Mark Bowden. Yeah, he I didn't know he was that guy. I remember that. You remember that commercial with the guy running naked in a London soccer game? That's Mark Bowden. I
covered it multiple times.
Yeah. I was like, whoa, I was like, what motivated that?
He's an actor. That's what. Okay, I'm going to sidetrack and then we will get off. But the thing to know about the behavior panel is they're readers, but Mark is a projector. Now he can read, but Mark is the guy you go see to get your shit straight to present to everybody else. And that's why I had him on with Simon Lancaster, because everything about him. Have you seen Lord of the Rings?
Of course.
Well, he's the general of the ogres.
Ah, okay.
He started doing costume work and grand scale. So everything about Mark is presentation. So that's why it's so important when, especially they're talking about, Prince Harry or whatever, pay freaking attention to Mark, because Mark knows this end. They're an amazing combination. And I'm really proud to, know these guys.
Oh yeah, they're fantastic. Brilliant.
That's very cool.
Natural. And those are the kind of people that you need in a jury selection process, right? You need every tool you can get that you can use, because you win or lose these political cases as soon as they sit down. And I'm sure the Chauvin jury verdict reminded defense lawyers of that were paying attention. But they still haven't appreciated it enough to have those kind of people for every serious trial they ever do.
All right. Well, fair enough. Then our curfew has been called. Allison just wrote in. You guys are still talking?
Did you hear about how she ran into somebody that had watched the show in her local neighborhood?
Eric, she's in the middle of a park in the middle of Washington State, and someone says, "You're Alison Morrow," and she's like, "Yeah, how'd you know?" I was like, "I saw you on the Viva Fry stream the other day." I mean, this is how beautifully small the world is. It's magnificent, and it was encouraging because I was very depressed that day, but it was encouraging.
Awesome. Well, thank you, and hopefully all of our celebrities will rise to be up there with the Viva Fry. And for now, everybody,
I'm always going to be known as Viva's sidekick. I'm Ed McMahon.
You say that, Robert.
He's Johnny Carson.
We're each other's sidekick. That's the beautiful nature of the relationship.
All right. Well, we're going to escape. Thank you.